Hello and welcome to Mike's Garage. Before we get started, I want to be sure and say if you haven't already subscribed, please do. And when you do, please click on the little notification bell so you'll be notified whenever we put up another video. I understand Google hasn't been real faithful about that lately because people are not all getting notified. Okay, which is also true of the fact that we haven't put a video up in about 2 weeks now. And instead of going into a whole song and dance about it, let's just say life gets in the way, but life is still good. Very, very good. All is well. A lot of people have asked what's going on, and nothing worth mentioning, but life is good. Okay? And I hope it is for everyone else too. All right. Let's see, I'm not sure where we were last time. I think mostly we've been fooling around with this front end and all these pieces and this big beautiful crown nut that I've got on here now and things like that. A while back I scored an antique front brake lever. That's a reproduction, but it's really pretty and I like it. I have a real one that I may have chromed and used instead of this one, but this one will do for now. I don't know if I'm going to put it on the right side or the left side. The old timers always ran them on the left side. With me, if I got a hand shift working that left hand, I'd really rather have the front brake on my right hand because my foot shift bikes have a brake on the right hand, and it just seems natural to put them both in the same spot. But that lever really is made to go on the left side, and it's really pretty when it's in place. We'll see what happens. We're not done yet by any stretch. But I've been working with this front end quite a bit, and now that I'm back on it, I'm really pleased because this is so much fun. You know, we're putting like a 1930s front end on a 1940s frame. We've managed to do it. The frame shop put the proper neck on it so that we could run Timken bearings here in the front end, and I also like to run Timken bearings in my wheel. So there are just certain upgrades I like to make that make me happy, especially the way I tend to ride a motorcycle. I'm not saying I'm a wild man, but anywhere that I go, my motorcycle is supposed to be able to take me there at whatever speed I select. So it's nice to have Timken bearings in the front end. It's nice to have Timken bearings in the hub. Now, the only thing is, I'm mixing and matching a lot of parts here. Again, 1930s front end, this is a VL Springer. 1940s frame, this is a UL, EL, FL, any of those frames for the big twins from the 40s. And now I'm using a 40-something Springer front brake. Well, with this VL front end, I'm also using the original rockers. I just love them. I mean, I can buy replacement parts for all of this stuff, but some of this old stuff is so cool, and I'm so glad to have it that I just keep hanging on to it and modifying things as I go. Now, modifying this brake to fit this front end has not been difficult at all, except for the shackle that locates the backing plate on the front end. Let me turn the front end so we can see how that actually works. This holds the brake in place with this lug right here. So this shackle going to this lug is not working. We have a space here of over 1/4 of an inch, and what goes through there, this is an old one of these that somebody chrome plated, and I'll have to hone this bushing to fit, but this goes through here and lines it all up onto the fork. And then this nut has a Zerk fitting in it so you can lube it so that this whole shackle is lubed. So let me see how this goes, and we can see it. So what we're going to do is probably tomorrow, I'm going to cut this shackle off right here, and we'll flip this end over, re-weld it, and thereby take up that space. Okay, we can see now how much it is. It's like 3/8 to half an inch off. When we get done with it, it's going to fit beautifully. But let's just leave that as it is for right now. The big deal, getting the brake on here, it's on. Let me show this piece right here. This piece goes through here and holds the brake to the rocker. It goes all the way through here. This piece right here is identical to this one here. Now we're using a wheel with Timken bearings in it, so we have to use the proper axle. This is a stock axle, or a replacement for a stock axle, which is just fine, except that it's made for the loose roller type wheel and will not work with the hub with the Timkens in it. So I bought an axle for that. The only problem is it wasn't intended for these 1930s rockers and all the spacing that I have here. So I took this yesterday to my good friend Flathead Mike. Notice there's no steps in here. And we put it in the lathe and we shortened this taper right here. We moved it back so that this spacing works out perfectly to hold the wheel. You can see how that goes. And I want everyone to know that I found my new rawhide mallet, okay? And the truth of the matter is, it's not broke in yet. I don't love it as much as my old one yet. But we also shortened this whole thing. You can see how much difference there is in length here. This thing would be sticking out quite a bit further. We shortened this one, and we also moved that taper over. So when the wheel is in place, there's a spacer goes here, goes against the wheel, you tighten it all up, and you're actually setting the preload on those Timken bearings with this piece and the spacer when we tighten down the axle nut. So, let's put it in place. Let's take this axle out of here. Set that down carefully. Put the brake drum in place. Brake drum is now in place, and I want to put the wheel in place. Now, one of the things I found out after moving all this, my beautiful wheel that I built, and when I did, I laced it right down the middle, centered it the way it should have been. Well, that's not the way things are going to work on this thing, because with all these parts that don't really go together, except they go together now, I'm going to have to shift it over. And I'll show that in a minute here when I get this wheel in place. What I'm going to have to do is take the wheel back off, take the tire off the wheel, and I will offset lace it to put the tire back in the center of the motorcycle. It's a thing I actually learned from an old Indian mechanic. And I say old Indian mechanic, he's my age, but he only works on old Indians. He's also old. Okay. But he taught me years ago, when you don't really know the offset of the wheel, you aren't really sure where you want it, true it up on the bike so that you can center it. Just actually take the bike, jack it up in the air, put whatever uprights you need to measure against, and align that rim in the center of the motorcycle. If it's offset on the hub, one side or the other, doesn't really matter. In fact, Harley even has had some models that they did that on. I think the late Springers from the late 80s were set that way with the 21-inch front wheel. They were actually had their own offset to them. So that's not really a strange thing. While I tighten this up, I'd like to also mention, I guess it's been about 2 weekends ago now, Long Beach swap meet. I was there. I met a lot of people that listen to watch our videos, which was really nice. It's always nice to connect with people that are actually interested in what we're doing. And gee, I don't know, I had a fun time. I actually sold some stuff and bought some stuff and rented some old timers that I knew, and it was a lot of fun. I know with this COVID thing that people have been doing without a lot of events, and it's nice to be back going to the Long Beach swap meet again. That's Long Beach Veterans Stadium. They have it once a month. I think it's the 3rd Sunday of the month, something like that. I mean, the schedule is on the internet, but that's the Long Beach Veterans Stadium motorcycle swap meet. Anyway, so now the wheel is onto the brake drum, and we can put the appropriate axle in place. Now what I have here is a spacer. That's an old spacer off of one of my front ends, and I put a washer on it. And all that washer is there for, this is just a little internal spacer in the hub here. All that washer is there for is to take up space. And as soon as I get a chance, I will make a spacer the proper length based on this spacer and that washer. Okay, let me have my nice soft old mallet. And there it is. Now, put the nut on here as we rethreaded this perfectly. I've got an old buddy who built some of the world's finest flathead V8s for Fords and Mercuries, and I went over to his house and he did all this work on this axle for me. And we had a good time, which we always do. So now that's done, and I wanted to show it. And here it is. I mean, I can tighten it up a little more, but it's going to have to come off again. My point being that this tire is not lining up exactly straight or exactly in the middle of the front end. You can see it's a little closer to this side than it is to this side. And I will measure it, remeasure it, set it like this, get it dead center. And the way I'll do that is I'll take the tire back off of this wheel. I will loosen the spokes on this side and tighten them on this side and shift that whole rim over. It's not a very involved process. It's not difficult at all. What you do is you count each flat that you turn each spoke nipple. Anyway, the next thing on the agenda is really to get this brake shackle corrected for this application. For this application, it means because it doesn't belong here. We're going to make it belong here. And I'm pretty pleased with how this is all coming out. I got the wheel I want, on the front end I want, on the frame I want, with the brass parts that I want, and so on and so forth. So that's where we are for now. Like I said, the next thing we'll probably show is this brake shackle. Trying to think if I've done anything that anyone has not seen on here yet. I did put a clutch rod on here just for fun to watch my clutch pedal operate. I still have to bend the bottom of the battery tray to clear it. And we're really getting close to finishing up the chassis. When I've got all this front end work done, which again we're getting close on, Then I'll do the rear brake, get all of that stuff done. And when that's done, then what we're going to do is put the motor in place. And basically it's just a dummy motor at this point. There won't be any insides in it. But I think it's going to be pretty exciting to watch because I have to have the motor in there to get all my spacing right on my exhaust pipes and the gas tanks. So we'll put the motor in there, and I'll put the exhaust pipes on it, and then we'll probably take it over to Turner's Customs, and Nathan is going to make those gas tanks fit for me, and I want him to do them with the motor in place. And same thing with the exhaust pipes. I've got their, I don't even want to talk about the pipes. Wait till you see them. They are too cool for school. I mean, they are way cool. And as far as I'm concerned, it's my taste, sorry. Anyway, we're going to put the pipes on it and see what brackets we need to add to the frame. Any welding that needs to be done to the frame or the tanks or any of that stuff needs to be done long before we can take it apart, paint everything, and start putting it together for the last time. So there you have it. That's as far as we've gotten for now. So hopefully see you soon. Until then, see you out on the road.